All right, we're back here on the Chase Almost podcast, joined by a first-timer back in the home state, the Dacula Falcons. Playoff football, it's here. The season, it's already gone, Coach. This is it flies by every season, but I mean, it is early November, and to kind of get us prepped for one of the bigger, more intriguing matchups in Gwinnett County this weekend here in GHSA, we got Dacula's own Casey Vogt. Casey, good evening, sir. How are you?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. How's practice going so far?
We had a good day. Little different schedule. The 7A playoff games in Georgia are being played on Saturday, so it gives you an additional prep day. So we really didn't spend a whole lot of time on North Gwinnett. Really spent a lot of time on Dacula.
Why is that? Why are they splitting it up like that? Because I didn't grow up like that. When
the officials earn points and rankings throughout the year, and so the only officials that are permitted to participate in the playoffs are the ones that have the highest ranking. I don't know how the point system goes, but they want to try to put the best officials in the best games. And so, in order to do that, they cut out some officials, and so. Again, it allows for Friday night and Saturday games. And then you also, again, it helps with attendance. You have people out there that are just football fans, and, they're going to go see Lanier play here in Gwinnett County, a big game on Friday night at the 6A level.
They got Roswell, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then they'll come see us on Saturday at the 7A level.
I like it. I mean, what's funny? I mean, I went to Parkview, full disclosure, Coach, got to tell you, Parkview alumni here. But it's funny because one of the things that's been like a common theme for Dacula and having friends go to Dacula and grow up in that area, one of my good friends, he lives there now, is that I swear they have changed classifications more than any other Gwinnett school, and it's not even particularly close. Does that factor into year over year, just kind of what you guys can be? Does it make the job harder not knowing which way you're going to go classification wise?
It does. And if you think about it, again, if you're a Gwinnett County guy, Dacula at one point in time was basically the entire eastern half of the county.
Yeah.
You didn't have Archer, you didn't have Mill Creek, you didn't have Lanier. None of those schools existed. You didn't have Mountain View. Everything was Dacula. And Dacula was kind of the country kids. And as Gwinnett's changed and grown, we kept moving up. And as we grew, they started sectioning off and cutting parts away. And so, what's left is we're kind of a landlocked. I mean, I kind of joke. I drive 2 miles. I'm in Barrow County.
Yeah.
I drive 9 miles in any direction. I run into Archer. I run into Mountain View. Or I run into Mill Creek. And those are three tough people to run into, because they're such good programs and such a high level of football. So, it does make it a little bit more difficult.
Has this season gone about how you expected it when you were working through it? You got a good feel in the spring and then going through installs in the summer. Like, did you feel about this is where the team should be at this point this year?
Again, I'll be 100% honest. Again, I scheduled on purpose. Again, every team we played this year made the playoffs except for one. I purposely scheduled because I needed to prepare our team for the region we play in is such a meat grinder of a region. And so, I purposely did that. Now, that being said, I also had 7 new starters on offense and 6 new starters on defense. And so I knew there'd be some growing pains, but to sit and say, hey, we were going to only win, because, we're a playoff team, but we've only won 3 games.
Yep.
And I never thought we'd be sitting here saying we've only run 3 games. In our independent, I felt we could have won some of those games. And, as I told the kids, there's 2 plays in every game. You could change the outcome of those 2 plays, change the outcome of the game. And, I told them all along, I said, guys, we still have a good football team. And we showed how good of a team we are last week against Collins Hill.
Yeah. Collins Hill blowout win last week. So with you scheduling the everything back to back, Coach, the Buford Mill Creek back-to-back, that is as tough as a back-to-back as you can possibly get, right?
Once you're in the region play, that's up to the GHSA for scheduling that. So I really don't have a say on that. But, I mean, when you look at the schedule at the beginning of the year, you go Buford, 6A state champion, Mill Creek 7A Final Four, Collins Hill 7A state champion at back end of your schedule. I mean, that's not much fun to look at.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, our kids, and this is the part that I don't know if you know this, our region, you have two teams where they're 1 and 2, Mill Creek and Buford. They're 1 and 2. 3 and 4, you had Mountain View, us, and Collins Hill that all had 2 wins and 3 losses. We each beat each other. So the actual tiebreaker was a point differential. And so Mountain View beat us by 22. So we had to score 22 points, and we had to limit Collins Hill to 13 because they scored a 14 against Mountain View. So as crazy as it sounds, we won 48-9.
Yeah.
If it was 48-16, Collins Hill was in the playoffs.
Are you telling your kids that during the game? Like, is that something you want them to think about at all?
I didn't tell our kids a word. I told them win the game.
Okay.
And so I didn't. Today's the first time I told my kids the actual tiebreaker scenario, and they were shocked. And I said, "Guys, why?" Because again, I didn't want them thinking about scores. I want them thinking play fast. And so I didn't share that with them until today.
What was the most important stretch of the season when you're replacing that many starters on offense and defense this year? What did you see this year where you're like, all right, this was a big tipping point week where they're starting to figure stuff out?
Well, I mean, like I said, we started to make progress, and then unfortunately, there weren't wins, and so that's hard to as a coach, I look at the progress. The kids look at the wins. As a spectator, you look at the wins. Parents look at the wins. They don't look at progress. And so I felt like we were really trending in the right direction. And then we lost to Denmark, and our kids played their stinging butts off against Denmark. And I won't get into it, but we had an opportunity to win that game. I don't want to, like I said, I was raised to give you nothing good to say nothing at all. But we found a way to lose that game, and it kind of crushed our momentum. And then you go to the following week, you play Mountain View, and you're in that game, and then we found a way to lose that game. And so all of a sudden, you're staring now at 2-7 right there, and then you got to go Mill Creek, Buford, Collins Hill. It's a tough stretch.
That is a tough stretch. And Buford too, man. Like, I grew up like Buford with Darius Walker and Justin Roper and company, but they were 2A, 3A, maybe. And then just to get bigger and bigger. But it's also cool. It's like one of those things. The reason I didn't want to harp on the record is just that, like, the schedule, if you're not familiar with the state of Georgia schedule and what you were dealing with in your region, what you're going to deal with for the foreseeable future, it's just different. It's like the SEC West, where it's just that you cannot look just at wins and losses for what is on your schedule, because I've looked at it. I mean, me being here in East Tennessee, you can see certain schools rack up a lot of wins, and it's fool's goal with some 56-7s against programs that should just not be on the same field as them. But it's different. I don't think y'all's season is indicative of the record. I think there's two different stories here at this point.
And that's where, like I said, people say, have asked me about Mill Creek and Buford, and again, as a coach, I'm watching a lot of film on a lot of different people. I don't know if anybody stacks up quite like those two.
Yeah.
I know it's 7-on-7, but we saw 7 on Colquitt and 7-on-7. We saw Valdosta in padded camp this summer, which are two really, really good South Georgia 7A programs. But I mean, like I said, I hate to say, you line up against Mill Creek and Buford, you get your hands full.
Absolutely. What was the biggest change from week 1 to now? What have you seen that's been the biggest difference in your team?
Well, again, we've got a lot of kids that have matured and grown up. Like I said, when you have 7 new starters, again, they morph from, now there's some kids that when the season started week 1, I thought those were going to be our guys, and they've whittled themselves out. But like for example, Marlon Stewart is a senior wide receiver for us, had never played football before as a basketball kid. We talked him into playing football, and he's had a phenomenal senior year. I mean, he's now getting recruited for football, not basketball.
How did that – that's so interesting, because you see that a lot more with tight ends with Tony Gonzalez all across the board, like a lot of those. And you just see the tight end position just changing so much with the Kyle Pitts types, the Travis Kelce types. And I'm curious for you, though, when you're bringing in former basketball players to play football and teaching the wide receiver position, what's the hardest thing for those kids to learn about the position?
Well, again, as a basketball kid, they're taught not to be physical. Well, say that they're taught that they only get 5 fouls, and so you got to use those 5 fouls wisely. and the physicality. You know, I mean, on a football field, you know, again, whether you're playing wide out, tight end, defense, it doesn't matter. You got to be physical. And so that's where I think it helps those kids go back to the basketball court, hey, about how to be physical and how do you have body control. And I'll really, really help those kids on the basketball court.
How do you look at this postseason matchup? Like, is there anything that you've learned about your team that you feel like, okay, I probably shouldn't have done this, or I'm going to ease up on this coaching wise? Or do you change at all come postseason?
You know, again, you know, like, I mean, I removed a kid from the team today. You know, he didn't want to get right. And I said, it's the playoffs, but it's a new season. Bye.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, I'm not going to tolerate again. I'm going to tighten the ship even more for playoffs. You know, I told our kids it's a new season. We're 0-0 right now, guys. Everybody's got the same schedule. You know, again, everybody's got the same record. And that's where, again, by tightening the ship and tightening the arrangement, again, all of a sudden that one kid got ejected out of our team meeting today, and I had him turn his gear in right during the team meeting. You know, that sets the tone right there about what we're doing and how we're going to do it.
What on tape do you like about North against your team? What are you seeing? You don't have to get into a specific game plan, but like, what are you seeing that you feel okay about going into this matchup this weekend?
Well, like I said, they've got a ton of talent in a lot of different places. You know, I mean, you know, you look at their D line. I mean, they got a kid committed to Ohio State. They got a kid committed to Wake Forest. You know, so you look at their linebackers. They got some kids committed to different places. You know, again, you know, when you look at that, you know, we got one kid committed on our program. That's it. You know, but I like our kids' tenacity. I like our kids' toughness. You know, and the other part is and nothing against their schedule. But you know, they did have to play Parkview. They had their hands full of Parkview. So, but nothing against their schedule versus ours. But our kids are more battle tested. They played a harder competition.
Who on your team this year? You mentioned obviously the wideout, but is there anyone else that's really jumped out to you? Has just been like a leader and just really, really impressed you all season long?
Well, like Chuma Okoye is one of our linebackers.
Mm.
You know, he's a 3.9 GPA, really, really intelligent kid. You know, he played an outside linebacker for us last year and was solid. You know, that wasn't, but I mean, you know, you read his stat line from Friday night. I mean, had an interception, a touchdown, tackle for loss, forced fumble recovered. I think he had 14 tackles. I mean, all on Friday night against Collins Hill. And I'm looking at like, you know, the kid's got one offer right now. Like, I mean, he's got to get more because he's had a phenomenal senior year. He's got all the things you're looking for. So again, he's a guy. But then our other outside linebacker, his name, we just call him Ziggy. His name's Chidozie Nochaki.
Okay.
He's a West African descent. But he's had, again, you know, he just comes to work every day. You know, he's one of those kids. He's got a lunch pail in hand. He shows up, comes to work, works his butt off. And again, you could bring in every kid on North Gwinnett's team, and they're more talented than he is, but he can outwork them. You know, so I really like that about that kid.
What's the hardest part about playing linebacker for you?
Well, again, Paul Carter's my defense coordinator, but he also coaches linebackers. He expects a lot from our linebackers. You know, I mean, this is the part I don't even know if this, Chase. You know, my background, I spent the previous 21 years in college football, and the four linebackers we've had at Dacula are better than the linebackers that I had at Mercer, the FCS level. You know, which again, one signed at Georgia Tech, one's at West Georgia, one's committed to App State, and then Chuma. Four of those guys can really stink and play. And so, our defense coordinator, Paul, does a great job coaching those kids. He expects them to be able to make checks and recognize, you know, what they're seeing formationally based on play calls on again, because they make the checks based on what they see on the field.
Who is a tape hero on your team that fans in attendance don't pick up on the stat sheets outside of the linebackers? Who have you loved watching evolve and just really do just great stuff for your team? Could be on offense, defense, two-way player. Who has been a tape hero?
Again, on the offensive line, Christian Ingram's are kind of locked himself in as our right guard. And I mean, he's one of those guys. Again, he's gotten better and better. I mean, he was a starter last year as a junior, but as a senior, he's kind of really come along and has really had a really, really good senior year. Again, he's pretty physical. Again, I like to match up with him versus the McDonald kid at North. I'd like to see. I know he's committed to Ohio State, but I'd like to see Christian against him.
Well, you've had experience. I mean, Dacula last year in the Buford game, went back through and watched that. I mean, that the App State kid on the edge for them, just quick first step, quick. He was a lot to handle. So you have familiarity. I mean, the state of Georgia has a lot of these defensive linemen that pose a lot of problems for opposing offensive lines.
Well, like I said, you see them week in, week out. Again, I mean, we played Mill Creek. They got a kid committed to Louisville,
Yeah.
and Buford's got, I don't know, they've got 6 of them. They're committed to somewhere. I don't know. They're all recruited by somebody. Again, the week before that, Mountain View's got a defensive end that is a SEC level player. Again, we played South Gwinnett. South Gwinnett, believe it or not, their defensive line might be the best one we've seen all season.
Really? What do
South
they do? Is it
they're
more talent or scheme?
The kid at South Gwinnett, I mean, he's a big athlete. I mean, he's 6'1", 230, and he can just go. He's powerful and he's got really good takeoff. So he's a problem. But like I said, he might be the best one we've seen all season long.
Have you been able to install everything you want to install offensively this year?
Well, and this is where again, I'm the head coach, but Steve Sims is my offensive coordinator, and so we blended my offense that we were running at the college level with some of Steve's stuff, and but again, it all comes back. What can your players handle? I mean, there's always stuff I'd like to add, but again, I don't want to get where you're running so much that they don't master anything. So I'm big. I mean, like today we had a meeting and. I sit there with a red marker and we cross stuff out just after today, and we really didn't spend a whole lot of time on North. It was just stuff that we wanted to look at and didn't like it, and do the same thing tomorrow and kind of whittle it down to, it's all said and done. You only need about 6 to 8 good calls and run them.
I like it. Coach, how do the good folks check out what's going on this week for Dacula football? How do they support the program back home in the home state and get ready for the North game?
Well, like I said, again, because it's a Saturday game, we're playing at noon. So I've already talked to people in my community. Again, I want to feed our team breakfast. And so I've already had people dropping off, juice and pancake mix and sausage and all that stuff, because we'll do breakfast for our boys before noon kickoff. And then I've already got people, I've been calling around trying to get people to donate stuff for post game, for giving them a pizza or something afterwards. But again, Dacula's kind of neat because it's got a kind of a hometown feel. Nothing against some of these other places, but they've grown up so much. There's not really anybody from Mill Creek, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, they're transplanted from other places, and a lot of Dacula people are down home Dacula people.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any game day routines? Do you follow any like strict? Do you follow, like, you put a certain amount of creamer in your coffee? Do you take a certain amount of steps around the field house? Do you have any things like that?
I pray, and that's about it. So
okay.
I go out and do my thing, and I'm fortunate now. My son is 13, so he's now following me around, and again, I followed my dad around. My dad was my coach in high school, and so it's kind of neat to have him kind of follow me around, and want to try to start teaching him some of the stuff my dad taught me a long time ago.
You think he's gonna be a coach?
I don't know. Like I said, this was his first year playing football. Never wanted to play until this year.
Did he like it?
He really enjoyed it. So, like I said, he had fun with it. So we'll see. And just like my dad didn't push me to play. It was just I decided I wanted to, and I told my son, I said, if you want to play, you can play. If you don't, it's up to you. And this was the first time he had an interest in playing. So.
There you go. Do you have a pregame meal you like doing or no?
No, like I said, I'm pretty basic. I don't. Like I said, our community supplies our pregame meal, so kind of whatever they
whatever's
supply,
there, you're gonna get after it. Are you a coffee guy?
I drink coffee in the morning. Yeah.
Okay. So, black or creamer? Sure.
Hot. I don't care.
You're just easy going. You're just day by day. You take what the day is giving you. You're not superstitious.
I'm going to make the best of it. And
yeah.
He said, my kids. He said I want to push them to be the best they can be. And like I said, I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I go watch film. So
4:30. Woo! What time are you going to bed?
Whenever I go to bed.
Man, I respect it. I love the hustle. Coach, good luck this weekend against North. Look, no love lost for the North Gwinnett Bulldogs. Go Dacula. A lot of good folks in Dacula, Georgia. So go support. Yeah, absolutely. Coach.
Appreciate it. And so again, the tickets are available at GoFan. But again, the game's over there at North Gwinnett at noon.
There you go. Go check them out for the local listeners back in Georgia. Coach, good luck this weekend, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Hey, thanks, Chase. Great talking to you, man. Take care.